Full send, bar down, boys. Welcome back to another episode of the Pieper Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brady Pieper, and today we welcome one of the weirdest and most outspoken guests we'll ever have, Richard James. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, sir. I appreciate it. It's always a good day when I can argue against you about basketball because you know nothing about the sport, but it's okay.
What jersey are you wearing today?
You know, my Raptors took game one against the 76ers in a very good fashion. Kawhi Leonard always dropping, the numbers he does. So, it's a good day to be a Raptors.
It's a quick introduction. I don't need to hear your entire backstory of why Toronto sucks. But anyway, welcome to the Pieper Sports Podcast. Intro now. All right, so first we're going to talk about the first round. I know you watched the entire first round. I watched the majority of the first round. Thoughts, opinions, anything in particular that you enjoyed or didn't enjoy? Thoughts?
I didn't enjoy the 76ers win. I thought the Brooklyn Nets played hard, even though they had nothing to prove, coming back from being one of the basement teams to now being a dominant 6th seed, a dominant Eastern Conference team. I feel like they deserved better, no matter what anyone says. The Warriors looked weak, as usual. I don't think they should have took the Clippers to 6 games like they did. I enjoyed the Nuggets win. Of course, hometown. We live in Denver. It's always a good day when you see the Nuggets win, even though DeMar DeRozan lost. Favorite player. Sad day.
Well, I will say, in my humble basketball opinion, which is always gospel, as we've learned.
It's not.
The Nets have a bright future. Same with the Clippers. The Nets and the Clippers both have bright futures ahead of them. I mean, if the Clippers can take 2 games from the Warriors with Lou Will as their best player, I mean, that team has they have a big future. D'Lo with the Nets, huge piece for them, and I think that Lakers to Nets D'Lo trade will forever go down as one of those mishaps when it comes to basketball. 76ers don't look that convincing to me. I don't think that they're a very, very convincing team this year. I don't think they have what it takes necessarily to go all the way. Although they have talent, I don't think they have the grit or the grime to do it.
On books, I think they are the second best team with talent next to the Warriors, but they have no chemistry whatsoever. Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons can't play together on the floor because one wants to take over the game of the other. Then Joel Embiid's there, the star of the team. Then you have Tobias Harris, another man that can drop 25 and 12 whenever he wants to. It's not a good mix yet, and I think next season they'll be more dangerous, but I don't see them being the Raptors at all. I see them taking 1 game, probably in Philly, but I think it's going to 5 or 6.
That series between the Raptors and the 76ers is actually a lot of fun to watch, mostly because of all the talent that is, being thrown at each other with, the 76ers have one of the best starting 5s in the entire NBA. I don't think any player on that team is better than Kawhi Leonard, though.
No, not at all.
I think Kawhi Leonard is the best player on the court at all times, especially in that matchup. The big thing for me would be, I think for the 76ers to have a shot, Ben Simmons has to start shooting, but it's not going to happen this year. I mean, he's a meme himself. He's a meme himself. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Ben Simmons. I think he's a little bit overrated. I think same with Joel Embiid. I don't think he's the best center in the game, or I think he's top 5, maybe top 3. I think Jokic definitely holds the top center role from Denver, though. So, it's kind of a little bit.
That's a little bias, but I'll give
bias
it to you.
there.
Joel Embiid is the most dominant center. I'll give him that, but I do not think he's the best center. I agree, he's not the best. He's just the most dominant. When it comes to that 76ers team, though.
When it comes to that 76ers team,
I don't think they could stop. Yeah, you're right. They can't stop Kawhi Leonard. Neither can they stop Pascal Siakam, the most improved player in my opinion. This season he's just came out and just proved that he can play basketball really well to a high level. Kyle Lowry does what he usually does, 9 points, but he'll drop 10 assists a game if he wants to. It's just, I feel like with that veteran core that you have, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, and Kyle Lowry, I mean, it's hard for that young 76ers team to stop. And I think once they mold together finally, then we could talk about, them competing for a championship. But I think it's too early for them to be talking about championship talk after they just got out of the basement 3 seasons ago. So,
I mean, do you trust the process?
It's looking bright, man. They got Jimmy. They got, if Ben Simmons shoots the ball, maybe Joel Embiid, if he stays out of being injured. Tobias Harris is always a good added asset to any team. It's a bright future for them. JJ Redick's sharpshooter, knocked down. Even though he's old, he's very old. So, I mean, it's a bright future, I think. They got to win in the next couple years, though.
We'll shift a little bit. Thoughts, opinions on the Celtics-Pacers. I think that was definitely a series that would have been far different with Victor Oladipo on the court. It was, it was a series sweep. Celtics win 4-0. Some of the games are a little bit closer than I anticipated them being with Victor Oladipo out. I will say I think Kyrie is one of the most dangerous guys in the playoffs right now. He's a threat on all ends of the court, and he's a scary man. Underrated player would probably be Al Horford. I mean, he's out of his prime, but I mean, Al Horford's still one of the scoring presence and best two-way centers in the game right now.
Yeah, he's probably not one of the most dominant centers right now. Kyrie's going to give you buckets regardless. He dropped 26 and 11 against the Bucks last night. I mean, anytime you have Kyrie in the playoffs, he's going to perform, even though, sometimes he'll disappear for a quarter, then come back. You can always rely on Kyrie Irving. The Pacers, however, I feel like they're just like the Nets. They had nothing to prove coming in. Everyone thought, without Vic, they're gonna tank, but they still kept pushing for the playoff push. They fought hard. It would have definitely been, I think, a 6 to 7 game series with Vic there. But I think the Celtics would have still came up top because they just have too much talent against the Pacers.
I think
love Miles Turner.
I will say one of the best benches, one of the best all-around teams has to be the Celtics.
Yeah.
I mean, even without Marcus Smart, they still have, Jaylen Brown. They still have Gordon Hayward right here. Gordon Hayward, number 20. Aaron Baines. I mean, they have one of the most deep benches and solid benches in the NBA, which I think matters a lot in the playoffs because of, after a long season, you're going to need that depth. You're going to need those players to come in off the bench. And if they can score, 40, 50 points off the bench, I mean, you're going to win games. And I think the Celtics have one of the best abilities to do that. We're going to shift a little bit towards the Western Conference. A little bit, still the first round recap for those that are still wondering. We're going to do 2 series, Rockets, Jazz. I don't particularly care about the Jazz. I think the Rockets, though, are interesting to talk about because James Harden, Chris Paul, Clint Capella, that team is scary, and I think they hold a real chance to beat the Golden State in this round, although they did drop the first game. We'll talk about the second round later, but what are your opinions of the Rockets in the first round?
On the books, they're probably the best team in the West out of the first round, I would say, because I was disappointed in the Warriors and how they handled the Clippers. I mean, that's just a returning championship team. You have DeMarcus Cousins out, even though he went down with injury. They should have swept them. However, James Harden's on an MVP caliber year again, dropping 35, 30 whenever he wants to. Chris Paul is now not injured, which makes a big difference because now all the weight is off of his shoulders.
Let me just say, James Harden, not my MVP.
He's not I know he's not mine
but
either,
he is the MVP.
But he is the MVP. Giannis is definitely going to win MVP this year, I believe.
You think Giannis is going to take it over James Harden?
Yeah,
James Harden's averaging 36 points a game.
But you got to think about it. The league doesn't care about how much you score.
Oh, yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. They care a lot more about scoring lately than they have anything else.
I mean, if you're leading your team to the only team to lead to 60 wins this season is a big statement. A man that I feel like Giannis has proved himself to be the third best player in the league next to LeBron and Kevin Durant.
That's what I see it as. James Harden will always be the scorer he is, but Giannis is the future. And I believe that he is winning MVP this year because of what he has shown in his leadership role.
Here's my MVP speech. Here's my MVP throwaway to you, okay? If the NBA and the voting committee cared about anything other than scoring, then Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic would be in the MVP conversation. You know, I think they care a lot more this year about scoring than anything else, considering James Harden is on a record-setting pace. You tell me, who's the last guy to score 36 per game?
Would it be the great Wilt Chamberlain, I'm assuming? You tell me.
Thanks, Lenovo and Vantage. I mean, of all the people in the world, you tell me who's even capable of scoring 36 a game for 82 games in the season.
But but how many of those are free throws?
So what?
I mean, he's a great player. He's unstoppable at what he does. I'll give him that. But if we're talking about leadership and the way Giannis has drove his team this season and proved himself 28-12 every single game, carelessly putting the team on his back to push him to the first seed, only team winning 60 wins. That's a very big statement. I think the NBA and the players will look at that very closely to see, hey, this kid is up next. This kid is the future. And that's what I think. That's what I think they're gonna look at, instead of just, hey, James Harden can drop 36 and 9 or whatever he drops, 36, 8 and 7, and lead his team to the 4th seed. It's just,
I mean,
you gotta look at
the
it.
first round. I mean, or the second round. You have, we're going to do a little bit of a shift over to the second round conversation here, Eastern Conference. Since we are talking about Giannis and the Bucks, I mean, they dropped the first game by 22 points to the Celtics. What happened? This was in Milwaukee. What happened to your MVP?
That's tough to say, because now we're starting to see that Giannis is James Harden from last year. I think everything and all the weight is on his shoulders now, because he has no supporting cast like James Harden has in Houston. He doesn't have a elite caliber point guard. Eric Bledsoe is good, yeah, don't get me wrong, but he's no Chris Paul. He's no scorer. Eric Bledsoe only dropped 6 points. Brook Lopez dropped 3. Chris Middleton, his right-hand man, dropped 16 and 10. So you're going up against a Celtics team with so much depth and so much power against 2 players. It's overwhelming because you think you have to do everything. That's why I think Giannis only dropped 22 and 8 and not putting up his numbers, because they know his game plan. They know he's not a consistent 3-point shooter. They know he just drives. Once he gets in the paint, he's unstoppable. That's why Al Horford just sat there.
You saw the defense that they ran. They ran a lot of help defense. They ran a lot of, especially when Giannis was driving. They had 3 guys on the baseline,
yep.
And they had Al Horford, of which I will make a little bit of a. You'll be able to hear it. I'll show the video later on the thing, but you'll be able to hear it now.
All right. Horford is excellent in finding space. Giannis blocked by Horford. Oh, he sent it back. Now, I just want to say this, though. Horford has 3 blocks in the game. Never mind all of the points and everything else. Just watch this. See, he lets them get a half ahead of him, and then so there's no body contact on the hit. Wow. You don't see that hopping off. No, that's just
I mean, that as simple as that. You see Al Horford dominated that game 1.
20, 11, and 5 blocks
against your MVP. I mean, what's the opinion there? What's the thought process behind Al Horford being able to bottle up Giannis and dominate that game 1?
I feel like it won't happen again, because now Giannis, as a young man like that, is, realizing that he can't have another game like that, because it's going to ruin him mentally. I think he's going to come out guns blazing next game, because, they're not used to, being down like this, losing 22 at home. It's not what the Bucks do. But if the Celtics can keep up the scoring run with Al Horford dropping 20, Kyrie dropping 26, Gordon 13, Terry Rozier with 11, yada yada yada. You know, that depth coming in handy. This is a 5 to 6 game series for the Celtics.
What's your overall prediction in this series?
If this trend continues, if they lose another game in Milwaukee, it's a sweep. I don't think.
You think it's possible for them to get swept?
I think if they drop another game in Milwaukee, it's possible to steal one in TD Garden, but TD Garden is one of the hardest places to play in. I would know because my Raptors has lost twice there. The atmosphere, the crowd behind you, every reaction and everything, it's just hard to play in TD Garden. I see if the Bucks can win at home, they steal one in TD Garden 2-2, but I think the Celtics win in 6.
I have myself Celtics winning in 5. Thoughts, opinions, anything on the 76ers Raptors series? I for sure have. I'll give you my opinion first. I have the Raptors winning in 5. I think the 76ers are the far weaker team, and I think it's all because of Kawhi Leonard. I think he's the soul of that team. I think he's definitely. I wouldn't say he's the soul because he doesn't have one, but I mean, I think Kawhi Leonard's the sole reason why that team is doing so greatly. Danny Green is a huge contributor, big part of that trade. I think Kyle Lowry is a special player. I don't think he's that X factor in that series, but I think he's one of the best or the biggest role players for that team right now. I have the Raptors winning 4-1 this series. I think the 76ers take one game, and I think they're going to take one game in Philadelphia.
I'm calling a sweep right now.
Full sweep. Sweep alert.
Knock on wood.
Sweep alert. I'm not knocking on wood. There's wood over here, but I'm not knocking.
I will commend the 76ers. They had a very good balancing scoring effort. Jimmy with 10, Tobias with 14 and 14, a very dominant double-double. Joel Embiid with 16 and 8, Ben Simmons with 14 and 9, JJ Redick leading the team with 17, 2 and 2. I mean, they're an all-around good team, but Kawhi Leonard and Pascal Siakam have proven that this shit ain't sweet.
Spicy P
is
Spicy P, and
why he deserves most improved
So you have
player.
full sweep 4-0.
I would say 4-1, but in the back of my head I want a full sweep.
Nope. Full send,
sweep.
bar down,
Full
commit
sweep.
to it.
Full sweep.
Full
dude.
sweep.
Get the
Full
brooms
sweep it is.
out.
Now we're moving to the Western Conference, previewing the 2 Western Conference games. I'll go with the Trailblazers Nuggets first because it's more hometown, and I want to talk about the Warriors Rockets last. So, Trailblazers Nuggets, I have the Nuggets winning this series in 5. I have a 4-1 series scoreline. I think the Nuggets are the better team when it comes to when it comes to talent. I think they're the more talented team. I love Dame. I love CJ McCollum. I love that Portland team, but they need bigs. You have Ains Kanter. Who's your other bigs? Yeah. Exactly. If you want to beat the Nuggets, you need to go into the post, you need to go into the paint, and you need to score there. If you score, the Nuggets can take away, Michael Malone can take away one aspect of your game better than anybody else. So when it comes to this series, if they can take away the 3 ball, then I think that the talent level of Portland, I don't think that they can do it. First game, I believe, is tonight.
It is tonight.
First game's tonight at home in Denver, right across the street, not but 1,000, 2,000 feet away. I mean, I have the Nuggets taking the series in 5. I think you need bigs to beat the Nuggets. I think the Warriors and the Rockets have the talent and the skill level to beat the Nuggets, but I don't think Portland does. Thoughts?
I'm going to go with the wild card here. I say Portland in 6.
Portland in 6. Why?
Damian Lillard has awoken the Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Russell Westbrook poked the bear. And I think that momentum is going to lead into Denver tonight because that man, I don't know.
Dame has nobody to be mad at, man. He has nobody to be mad at on the team. He doesn't know anybody.
It doesn't matter. That momentum I think it's just he just wants to piss off Russell Westbrook by winning. Do you ever just like seeing the kid on the pickup game?
I think sending him home was the biggest thing.
I think
Because you remember when he made that three, which I will show now, when he made that three, I mean, that entire team just went off. He waved goodbye, but that was also his goodbye in the next round. He's leaving the playoffs this round, and I have zero doubt in my mind.
I think he's going. I don't think it's going to be a 4-1. I think it's going to be in 6. So I'm going to give it to Portland. They've surprised me this season. They usually are a team that loses in the first round. They got swept last year by one player, Anthony Davis, and it was sad to see that happen. But I think that team now has momentum, and I think they have a statement to make that, hey, we're not just a one-and-done team. We're here to ball. And I think that's the biggest thing, having that chip on your shoulder. And Damian does have that chip on his shoulder right now. No doubt in my mind. So does Jokic, and I will give it to him. The triple-double machine right now in the playoffs going bananas, but I just don't see the Nuggets, that young core, and that veteran, that young team just winning that series, because I know it's hard, but I just have Portland has so much momentum right now, and it's just, I think it's going to carry over.
I'll say a chip on your shoulder can carry you far, but a chip on your shoulder can crack at any moment.
Of course.
Portland, that chip is not big enough. It's not there.
We'll see.
This is. I'll say this. Can we agree to one thing? This is the one series that I think is going to go to 7 if it does.
Yes,
I think it's the most likely to go to 7. I think it's going to be the most the least watched, but the most fun to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be
game of all. Final one, we're going to go Rockets, Warriors, and I personally have the Rockets winning this series.
If this is any series,
I have the Rockets winning in 6.
Oh shit!
I have the Rockets winning in 6. I have the Warriors taking 2 games, and they took the first one off of some controversial calls. I don't think James Harden should get all the calls, but some of those were very tic-tac, not very bang, in lack of a better term. But I think the Rockets are the one team that can knock the Warriors out in anything less than 7. I think it all matters, though, of what happens in Golden State next. I think the next game, which should be tomorrow, I believe, the next game matters most. If the Rockets go out into Golden State and win that game, they have a good shot at winning the series. I think splitting that first game or the first 2 games is extremely important in the playoffs against the home advantage team. I think the Rockets can do it. I like Harden. I like CP3. I like Clinton Capella. I like Eric Gordon. I think they have the talent level to do it. They just got to do it and not hope the refs win the game for them.
I hate to say it, but I think Warriors in 6.
You have Warriors in 6. Why is that? They're such an upcoming team.
Kevin Durant is on a fucking tear. Excuse my language. He's the MVP right now in the playoffs, next to Kawhi Leonard in my book.
Don't you mean Al Horford? No,
not at all.
I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Kevin Durant had 35 last night, 11 of 25 from shooting. James Harden, 35, 9 for 28. If you expect to beat a Warriors team with so much talent, you can't have one of your star players get ejected over frustration. That's one thing, because then your morale is down. If you're arguing the refs the whole game, nothing is going to go your way. In any sport, you can't argue the refs because they're not going to call the things that you want if you keep complaining to them.
They can't be your crutch.
Exactly, and that's what the Rockets use. They use the refs as a very, very, very big crutch. I think anytime James Harden does his patented step back, even though he leans forward when he steps back, which is contradicting, he kicks his foot out and expects a call every time. Same with CP3.
You have to change the rules to make sure that doesn't happen.
And that's why the refs didn't call it last night. They've been using that exploit. I'm going to say exploit because the whole season to get where they are now. And I think we're starting to see without that team cannot function properly. Chris Paul got ejected because, and I quote, he said,
Stop, get off your knees, ref, because you're blowing the game. That's why he got ejected, if you didn't know.
So I think if you keep playing to the refs and you keep complaining, your head's not in the game. Just play your. The Rockets just need to play their game. They lost by 4. They can bang out with the Warriors. Of course, they could win this series if they just play their game. But they're playing to the refs, and they want the refs to call everything. And I think that's going to be the downfall of that team, because we saw that with the Warriors when they lost to LeBron in 2015.
I can see that. I can see that 100%. So we're going to do this final little segment here of the video.
2016.
2016. Warriors blow 3-1 lead.
Yeah. I just had to correct myself.
Yeah, I just had to say 3-1 lead. Blew it. Warriors. So obviously you're picking Toronto to win it all this year, are you?
Yes.
And obviously I'm picking Boston. We're both picking 2 Eastern Conference teams, 2 teams that can easily match up in the second round if they go for it. I'm not going to let you go on a full rant
I'll let you go
on this.
first. I'll let you go
No.
first.
I'm going to ask you this one question. Richard.
Yes.
Richard Kobe James.
Yes.
In 1 sentence or less, tell me why Toronto will win it all.
It's this year or nothing. That's all I'm going to have to say.
It's this year or nothing. I will give you mine. Kyrie Irving is a bad man. And I'll leave it at that. Now, this will be the final segment of the Pieper Sports Podcast today. I appreciate your time being on. I appreciate you giving me your abilities and your time and your basketball knowledge, as you can hold up your page of notes that you've written down, your pages, your entire booklet of
Skip. Yes,
basketball knowledge.
Yes. My book.
This is Skip and Shannon from MSU Denver. Thank you all for your wonderful, wonderful time. We'll be back end of the second round, with more basketball previews and basketball evaluations. Thank you all. Goodbye. This is the end of the Pieper Sports Podcast. Oh, like, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell notification after you subscribe. And maybe one day my best friend, Richard James, will actually tweet out my video or put it on Instagram.
I'll tweet this one out.
Now that he's on it. Thank you all. Goodbye. I appreciate your time.